Hello, I'm Bernard Hickey from interest.co.nz and welcome to an investing special on South Canterbury Finance, which has today come out with its annual result. Now it's worth looking closely at South Canterbury Finance because it's big, and it's unusual for a finance company that it's not in financial trouble. It's run by Allan Hubbard. He's a legendary figure in the South Island, a philanthropist who drives a VW Beetle. He's worth hundreds of millions, depending on who you talk to, but he's well known for being a very careful businessman. South Canterbury Finance too is well run and diversified in both its lending and its funding. It has a BBB- investment grade credit rating from Standard & Poor's and lends to a variety of people, so farmers, consumers, some property investors and a bunch of others. And it raises money from a variety of sources, so not just mums and dads and debentures, but it has borrowed from the US private placement market and has also issued some bonds and has a bank funding behind it. Now its results are interesting, an $82.7 million profit for the year to June. Although you've got to be careful with finance companies, a profit doesn't necessarily mean much. It's worth though looking at what's happening to their funds inflows and outflows and what's happening with their lending and their cash position. So having a look at lending, now their loans are up 11% to $1.5 billion. So they're still doing business, still lending, when many others have either stopped lending or actually are calling in loans. The equity involved in the company, so how much the shareholders has at stake, that's up by $49 million to $252 million. And South Canterbury has been very careful over the last year or so to raise new funding from different sources. Over $500 million worth of new funding from 2 bond issues and a trip to the US private placement market. Very unusual for New Zealand companies to get into that US private placement market. You have to either be a very big corporate and you have to have a good credit rating. Quite tough to do. So all that means that South Canterbury Finance has $400 million in cash, either sitting in the bank or able to be retrieved from the bank at very short notice. And that means that its debenture reinvestment rate is at 63.7% on average through the last year. That's very high for finance companies who have been hit by volatility in the sector and a crisis of confidence. The South Canterbury has sailed through that pretty strongly. In fact, its new funds inflows in the calendar year so far, an average of $4.7 million a week. I'm Bernard Hickey. That was a special report on investing in South Canterbury Finance.